Hello, how's it going? You are listening to Born Optimistic. Thank you so much for listening. It's my privilege and honour to be here with Khumariyaan, a group all the way from Pakistan. Now, as is tradition on the show, I have to start by asking you, where do you fit on the optimism spectrum? Optimist or pessimist?
Amir here, and I would rate myself as optimist/realist.
Can you explain a bit more and tell me maybe where that came from?
Well, I think as you're growing up, look at things more realistically, and being an optimist is something that keeps you going every day, and that is the process of growing and evolving, I think, with your day-to-day life. So that's how I consider myself. That's why I call myself as optimist/realist.
Anyone with similar or differing opinions?
Similar opinion. Shiraz.
Tell us a bit more about your take on optimism. Were you always an optimist? Were you born with it, or did you try and become one?
I tried and became one. Initially, I wasn't that optimistic. I usually used to think negative. There happened to be negativity in each and every aspect I used to think of. But with time, I learned that there are certain things that you take optimistically, and it is then that you can advance towards success. So that is what I believe in.
I'm very curious about this transition from pessimism to optimism, because I made the same transition myself. So I'd be very curious if you could go back in your mind to the steps you took and see if other people might want to copy your example.
One of the steps, do not listen, do take the criticism positively. No matter whatever people say about you, do not get offended towards it. Rather act accordingly, and maybe there are certain things that people do not like about you. So there are certain points that if you think it is good, it is good. But if you think it's bad, so you should actually abide by it and then improve yourself. This is what I believe.
At what age were you when you made the transition from pessimist to optimist?
Around 24 or 25.
Oh, wow.
Quite late though.
Was this an overnight transition? I mean, I'd love to know more about it, because this could help a lot of people around the world.
It wasn't overnight. It was quite gradual. With time, I started learning about it, and with the advent of time, there have been many of those things around. I personally changed myself. I was quite shy. I did not used to talk much, but with time, I usually got criticized by people that you are the most shy people around, mostly in the band, yes. So I adopted that and started talking much, and now I talk as well. Plus, I also try on to speak as much as I can about positivity, as you said.
So were you a pessimist when you met these guys, and did you transition?
Not though. I was quite optimistic since the time we all met back in 2009, I suppose.
The
2008.
optimistic mood was already on when he joined the band.
So it was optimism that brought us all together.
Explain.
Yes. You see, if I was pessimistic about it, I wouldn't have been a part of this band.
Yeah.
So definitely, it is something related to being optimistic about it.
Our agenda is same. Our agenda, we wanted to promote our cultural music, despite of bad things happening around, and no opportunities and challenges. And we are optimistic that we can do this thing and can take it to the next level. So we joined together on one table. We discussed what is the music, and what we could do with the music that it can promote and face all these challenges. So motivation is one.
So you're a band with a mission at your very core.
Yes, obviously, and we are almost 90% completed that mission.
Well, could you define that mission?
In everything else, well, the mission basically is that if you've ever seen us perform, or if you've seen a video of us, or indeed if you do see our show, you'll realize that we all sit in a line, and there is no one front man or one person at the front. In Western settings, most people know who the drummer is. Hey, it's Tony the drummer, and who the keyboard player is, and they're all together and they make compositions and everything. But back home, it's not like that. back home, 100 people, a whole orchestra will be playing music behind one person, when they'll just name one singer. Oh, it's his song or it's her song. And that was happening a lot, especially in our province, that the bands were being used as stepping stones to other bigger things. So we decided it was a conscious decision to not involve such people and only work for the people in the background, the people actually who are the composers, who people who do all the hard work and get none of the limelight and get none of the financial support. And just because they chose music as their livelihood, they're ridiculed. So this is our little mission to just protest the way things are for musicians back home.
So people are ridiculed for choosing music as a livelihood. Can you explain the background to that for me?
Yes, it's basically a class thing. Most musicians aren't really educated back home, simply because there's no support for them. There's the financial situation their financial situation makes them, it doesn't give them access to education, and so they go into music. And quite a while ago, we used to really love our musicians, but then when governments changed, priorities changed, regimes changed, these people are out of jobs. And when they were out of jobs, they were moved to certain areas, certain red light areas of the country where these people weren't seen as acceptable people in the society. And it's not their fault, it's just circumstantial.
Okay, so just take a few steps back, a few years back, to your own upbringings and the place of music in your lives, and when you started to become musicians, and the attitude towards music in your families. I mean, was music something you've all done all of your lives?
Well, excuse me, not exactly. Music, I think, in every corner of the world, everybody is influenced one way or the other, or associates themselves with music. If you're happy, you're listening to a particular kind of music. If you're sad, you have a certain kind of a music to relate to. So that is pretty normal in, I would say, that listening to music, but being involved in music is a separate thing. That is the question mark. Now, as Spanle said, it's a class thing and it's a family thing as well, because obviously in any family or you go to any country or anywhere, any parent would want their children to do something, be productive in a practical life, in a good job, or in a stable livelihood. Music and art form as in the developing countries, it's not that strong. It doesn't have a clear path or a direction, or you would know, okay, you have those like as in curriculum in the school, or being state-run institutions from where they can actually be groomed, like music, and not only the music players, but the people alongside it, that there are music producers, and so this, like the sound people. There's like so many different degrees as in the education system. So those things, when they're not available, so everybody has a shady idea about it. So where would it go? Are you going to be mostly the idea is, okay, you're going to be a street performer. How long will that last? So that concern to a degree is right as a parent, but what you do with it, and since for us it wasn't that difficult, because fortunately we come from privileged backgrounds, so it was kind of acceptable. But yes, that thing was given very clearly to us. You should have your practical life sorted out, and at the same time, if you can manage it music alongside, then there is no problem with it.
So you say you come from privileged backgrounds, which isn't the norm for musicians. So was there a point where you had to go to your families and say, I want to be a musician, I don't want to be what was expected for you? What was the path that would have been expected?
Well, it wasn't there wasn't a specific direction as it dictated to us that this is exactly what you're going to do. There was whatever you do, anything in life, choose whatever, be careful about, but then put 110% to it. Then be dedicated to it. So as you see, we all have our day jobs as well. Yes, and this is what we do on the weekends.
there's an assumption right now going on that we don't have day jobs.
Yeah.
And that we chose to be musicians. We did choose to be musicians, but we sort of figured out really early that if we show our traditional music in a way that it's acceptable, it's not right, but for done by people who are presentable. Those are the words of the people. I mean, we didn't. The mission never stated that we were gonna wear Western clothing and be able to speak English. We were just doing it for the music. But then we realized that since these things are ingrained in society, it was that for us to make people take us seriously, we needed to have day jobs as well. So so for example, we do a concert in a university or a college, and the teachers would say to you, would ask us, "Is this your real job? Yeah. Is this your real job?" And then someone would say to them, he's the cousin of that guy, and he's like, no, he can't be his cousin. Those guys, that family is really well groomed and they're good people. And so when they say stuff like that, it gets on your nerves. So then you have to tell them, no, we have degrees, we have this, we have that, and then they realize, then that's a bit of a shock to the system, because they've been teaching kids that you have to be either a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. So that's and it's easier for the families back home to sort of cope with this when you have day jobs, because to be honest, it's very difficult to sustain. I would imagine anywhere to sustain a life as a musician, and especially in Pakistan.
But if you had a choice between your day jobs or music full time, what would your choice be?
Currently, I've selected music.
Yeah.
Is my personal choice because it is growing. If I'm optimistic about something, it means I have to do and I have to take it on a bigger level. And I'm committed, and the things are changing now in the right direction.
So can you tell me a bit about this folk culture that you see yourselves coming from, or that you are coming from, and that the music it is you're playing? I know nothing about this. The show's listeners know nothing about this. Can you fill in some background about the culture that it is that you're embodying?
I'll tell you what I used to tell students in the USA when we used to do meet and greets with them. The USA is a huge country, and it takes you 4 or 5 hours to. I know it's a bit off topic, but I'm just trying to make a point. It takes you 4 or 5 hours to travel over it or fly over it at least, and but wherever you go, with different accents, they speak mainly one language. It's English. So Pakistan, it'll take you 2.5 hours to cross, but there are more than 2 to 3 dozen, maybe 4 dozen languages in it. After every 100 kilometers, the dialect of a language will change, and after every 500 kilometers, the entire, maybe 600 kilometers. 50. Okay, 50. Oh, Amir knows this. Amir knows this because he works in the development sector.
No, I have a proper research over it. The cultural mapping of Pakistan. We went to this Chetral, which is a small dot on a map. Chetral is a beautiful place in Pakistan. It is a small village, and although it is not a city, it's a village, and there you will find 4 to 5 different languages, and there are about 4 religions they are practicing. There are now, every religion have its own festivals. Every language have its own poetry and their own music. It's very diverse. It is a very small village, and you just imagine
it's very far away. It's like for the 12-hour, 14-hour drive.
Yeah.
But that's like a extreme example.
Yeah.
But if you look at it generally, the point that we're trying to make is that there are a lot of languages.
Obviously.
And there are 4 provinces, and each one has its own language. And there are 4. The 5th one doesn't matter. Yeah, that's what our government tells us. Yeah, and there is one entire area which has been called a province, but they don't give them the rights of a province, and they have their own stuff going on. They have their own languages. They have every single village has a different language over there, and even in our own families, for example, if my mother comes from a different part of the province and my father comes from a different part, so I have to speak 2 dialects to communicate what's going on. And if I go to, same for Amir, and if I want to communicate with Amir's family, I have to then learn a 3rd dialect. because there's so much. So what I'm trying to say is that it's crammed full. Our country is crammed full of folk culture, folk music, folk art, folk traditions, and the music scene has been as old as any other music scene. What happened to it over the years is a different story, but every single person back home knows their folk tunes. They absolutely knows them. They know them. They know the lyrics to them more than they know their national anthem. They will remember them. So we come from a place where this is all happening. It's there.
And is everything you play folk music?
What we do is, well, mostly we try to keep it folk. We try to play it in a manner that it isn't completely folk and it isn't completely classical and Western. Classical as in classical Eastern style, and then Western either. So we try to, our compositions are they run parallel to different folk compositions. We try to use the same rhythms and the same beats and the same structures basically, but mostly we do original music, and one or two we do very popular folk tracks.
But we name it like a hyper folk. It's some like the most faster version of folk, you can say that.
So maybe to help us understand a little bit more about your mission and objectives, just explain your band's name and what it means and the meaning behind the meaning.
Khumariyaan, it comes from the word khumar, which means state of intoxication. It's not necessary it has to be with any drugs or anything, but a state of intoxication you can be in that with music as well. So any person who creates that atmosphere, that environment are called Khumariyaan, those who create that. So that's how we are called Khumariyaan.
So define intoxication in this context.
I'll take that one. In before you say anything controversial,
Well, hang on a minute. What could he say that's controversial? Let's grasp the thorn.
Well, nothing at all. We're sitting right across the bar. What I'm trying to say is, and not to undermine the beauty of the Sufi tradition back home, is that they did not need worldly intoxicants to go into a state of trance, and the music was enough for them. You never see the whirling dervishes having some drinks before they start whirling. No. For them, their head or their master, he will just whisper a few words in their ears, and that'll be enough to send them into a trance. And with our music, that's what we try to do. And back home, we have these specific. I don't know what jhol will be called. Maybe beat patterns, which are very repetitive and very trance-like, and they've been used for centuries in Sufi music tradition, and in folk music as well. So that's the sort of place we're coming from, and that's what we sort of try to exploit when we're playing.
So you all are Sufis, or I mean, I've seen the name Sufi mentioned in a press release by you or about you. I don't know if Nusrat Ali Khan was Sufi or Bida Parveen.
It's a belief of like a mystic belief. You believe in mysticism, but we are not Sufi. But the music we produce somehow you can link it with the Sufi structure.
Modern day Sufi, yeah. And we are not mystic.
Yeah.
At all.
Everyday people.
Yeah, and not mystic. No, everyday people can be mystic as well. But as in, I suppose anyone who is a bit optimistic about life is a bit Sufi and is a bit of a mystic.
Well, so are you trying to conjure the mystic, to summon the mystic, to be facilitators of mystic?
Well, it is where the magic happens. So yeah, that's what
with
we're trying.
Music.
Yeah, with the music.
With the music.
And obviously with the people, like as Parle usually says, you feed off the energy. That's how it's created. Because when you have people around you, when you're playing music, so it's not only them, but it's you as well. You enjoy, you go in that state of intoxication, as I would say, state of a trance.
There's a collective conscience thing going on, and I think that is a very big part of being Sufi and being a mystic. In that manner, I suppose you could say, that there is some modern day
Because music is something at that time, because music is what we are playing, is what connects you to everyone there. So, and since our music is instrumental, there are no lyrics to it. Because in any song that you would listen to, if there are lyrics, usually your imagination will revolve around the lyrics, basically. As an example, I usually give, if you're talking about a cold winter's night, so automatically your imagination will be around a cold winter's night. But if it's just music, so we leave it to you, to whatever you take out of it, however you assume, whatever. So that's how it is. So if there are like 500 people there, so 500 different as I say, inspirations or...
You mentioned Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan at some point. Nusrat, there were two concepts about love in Islam, or just generally back home. One is called Ishq Hakiki and one is called Ishq Majazi.
Majazi.
So one is love for the worldly, and the other is love for the the other worldly, Hakiki, the real love, the love of God.
Yeah.
But Nusrat had a very hard time explaining to people that his lyrics weren't actually about a female lover. It was about his conversation with God. And the people who did not take to music so well, it was very easy for them to exploit this problem. And so although Nusrat never ever said that his music is about someone from the world, and he always maintained it, I'm talking to God. And to some extent, you and I or whoever listens to it, they will say yes, that is true. But for people who have different agendas, it's very easy to sort of create issues. That's why if you don't have any lyrics at all, it just becomes very easy.
So for you, is the objective of a concert to create this communal intoxication? Has the concert been a failure if this hasn't occurred?
Well, somewhat, yeah. And not just that, because usually there are so many things involved in it. It's never just one particular agenda that you work on. Okay, this is exactly what we're going to do. Like, if you go back home, we all have some subconsciously going through some tensions. We all have that in our lives. Some suffering, something in the back. But whatever you're doing, and you know that I'm making everyone around them forget about their worries for at least 10-15 minutes, and they're actually happy. There's pure joy around you. So that itself is an incredible feeling that you get. And even not just that, but afterwards, when people obviously respond to you and then you see their feedback, and that's where you actually get how it went and what people perception has become. Like usually there'll be like so many people. I would just narrate a story that there was during our US tour, when I came back, it was a student, I'm forgetting, I'm sorry, a 17-year-old, he wrote me an email and he was like, I was suffering from some illness. He mentioned some sort of a cancer or something, and I'd stopped doing everything. Like I was into track and field, and I was a good athlete and everything, but that kind of lost hope. So I was like, okay, this is it. Now what am I going to do? And then somebody suggested, okay, there's a concert happening. So I just went with him, saw your performance, and thank you for inspiring me. And now I've picked up a guitar, and that's kind of my medium as well now. And I'm doing this, and I thank you for that. So you see, these sort of things is something that literally gave me goosebumps. Like, I'm just an everyday person like you as well. I'm actually enjoying what I'm doing. So if this sort of response you're getting, so that you mean that there is something to it. So if this could happen to one person, so I'm sure it is affecting, it can be like you can multiply it. So that's...
So your concert in Trinity College this evening is an all-ages concert. So there's almost the idea that all ages can share an intoxication, which is a rare opportunity.
Yeah. Well, when you said that to create an communal intoxication, I think there was a bit that was too philosophical for us. we never thought of it that way. Our main idea, it's just our music is very pure. It's very simple. We have very simple instruments. All our everything, all the constructions of the tracks and everything. It's very, very simple. And the main idea is just to show people how people of the world are quite similar in a lot of ways, and that never take something for face value. And that's the main gist of it. And whatever it's creating, that was just a second. That's just a second thing that happened. It just happened to go in that direction. But mainly, what we were trying to do was back home as well was that just because stuff was. I mean, right now I can speak for everyone and tell you that we have been in the vicinity of a lot of bomb blasts right after or right when they happened, and this is something I believe that maybe some Irish people can also relate to. So you need some sort of relief. You need to take your mind off what's going on, and it's happened many times back home that after something really, really bad happens, after a certain mourning period, there just has to be some sort of release. For us, it's to be on stage and just bang out some tunes, and there's nothing. I don't believe there's anything insensitive about it, as long as the people want it themselves. And for us, it started like that. And even if we can't create this whole aura of a communal intoxication, if people find it interesting that there is such a band from such a place, and if they take out some time to listen to our music and we change maybe one or two perceptions, I think that's pretty much done. That's pretty much done.
What do you think is the role of intoxication in society in general, and the need for intoxication in a general global sense?
Well, we wouldn't know because all intoxications are banned back home, so we are completely clean in that manner. Yeah, because we've been told that it's something. Well, there are different theories about it, and certainly we aren't on any scholarly level to comment on that. But I'm trying to be safe here. But the thing is,
but
whatever works
musically.
Yeah, no, he's not talking about musically. What he means is that we are tolerant enough to say that whatever works for someone, whatever helps them cope, or whatever helps them be more happy, we are tolerant enough to say that that we will not ask anyone to do what our faith says or doesn't say. Yeah.
No. My point is more that it's obvious that as our beings, we need something, and different societies have different solutions. So you live in a society that doesn't allow alcohol, but yet people will become intoxicated at your concerts. In our country, you could say that some people get too intoxicated. So I'm just wondering about the perspective and this utilization of intoxication.
I'll tell you something really interesting. Do you remember when there was a ban on alcohol in the Western countries? Do you think it stopped people? It didn't. So there's another parallel for you. Yeah. So I won't say it in direct words, but nothing stops people. And this is a global phenomena, right? And it helps a lot of people. It helps a lot of musicians come up with some really amazing music. And a lot of amazing artists come up with some really, really nice art. And some absolutely beautiful philosophical dialogue has taken place while being under the influence. But for us, we are trying to, like you said, you don't need that stuff if you're optimistic. Yeah, and for us, it's trying to bring to show another way of being happy or of being intoxicated. That's the way it is for us. And you're right, absolutely. Every society has its own way, and we cherish everyone's right to be happy.
But there is one line, and I know in your country, it's not. Some people do not accept music at all. So for you, the very act of playing music is a political statement, a dangerous thing, or?
Well, it's not political, I would say, because and as far as we basically be talking about the medium that we're using. One way or the other, it is working for the people or the society in general. Because as in our day job, I work in the development sector as well. And using music is something which is universal. Again, it is one thing that applies everywhere with the same intensity, with the same force. Like when the first time we were touring the US, that is the first thing. It was like, how would that be taken as? How would our music be reacted to? Like back home, okay, somebody would relate to you. Like now that we've had a conversation, we are on that term that you would be there. We see familiar faces there. So that is kind of your support system there as well. But entirely coming to a new place, a total new culture, new people, so bringing a totally new thing to them, how would that be reacted to? But after a while, then you see, no, it's not that different from back home as well, as in the medium that we're using.
Coming to your question about the fact that is it dangerous for us to play and for what's happening back home? Most general people, middle class, upper middle class, lower middle class, even if they're not progressive, they listen to their music. You go to any when YouTube wasn't banned, it's open now. But when you go to any YouTube place, there's always going to be people who there are always going to be millions of views for religious things, but there are always going to be millions of views for music as well. So there are people back home. It's not just that everyone thinks that there's always going to be a section of people, and there is a large section. Don't get me wrong, but like I said, it's just that the way the system is, that we are shielded by a lot of it, just purely because we can speak English, and I've been repeating this line for the past 1 week now. I heard in a movie that this really philosophical female, she says that the 10 commandments aren't meant for people like us; they're meant for poor people. So, if you come from a certain background, it's not that difficult. But when you do get the odd call, that you should, what are you? This is not right. What are you guys doing? And you do face a family situation like some Farhan has faced some, and even I have faced some family situations, because this is essentially, it's non-conformism. And if you have long hair or if you play an instrument, and if people tend to have issues with that, and they can't exactly pinpoint why they have issues with it. Maybe it's a simpler thing. Maybe it's just a hatred towards it's just maybe just pure intolerance, and maybe it's not religious based. Maybe it's just because of their problems as human beings and not as and religion later. But it's there. But when you do get the odd call, you just carry on. You just tell them, yes, you are absolutely right. I have now seen the light, and we will do as you say. And that's something that they aren't actually expecting. They were told that these guys are never going to listen to you. These guys are liberal fascists, which is a very weird term, because how can you be liberal and be fascist at the same time? And they will never listen to you, and they will never share your opinion, and they are this and this. So when you engage in a conversation with them, you realize that it's a lot more difficult to hate, and it's very easy to love, because hate is something that is not a natural state of being. I feel it requires a lot of effort for you to hate someone, because over time, as human beings, we're built to forgive, and if you want to if you want to hate, you have to find very weird and frivolous reasons for you to hate a person. So I believe that it's not all danger, it's not all difficult, and now in the past 10-15 years, after we've been playing and we've been telling people that we are we are this and this, and we can, we have education, and this, you can do both. It's not such a bad thing. Now, the people who are the opinion makers, who are the cream, who are the educated people, they've picked up instruments as well, because it was okay for them. It's okay for them to do it now, because there are other people who are doing it as well. There's an example, and then there's if enough people do it, it becomes acceptable. So now it's become easier, and it's the internet. It's everything's global now. You do anything, and you will find someone who will say yes. This is the right form of expression in the world, and it's really nice now because this generation is taking it up, which means the next generation will have parents who used to be musicians or who used to be filmmakers, photographers, and things like that. And now people have realized that maybe having a slightly entrepreneurial mind towards earning, towards doing something is not so bad, because they've seen their children struggle with those traditional degrees and traditional education. And when you and the world is changing. You go to Google, they won't look at your education. They will look at what you know. They look at your skill. It doesn't matter if you've done O levels, A levels, or you have a degree in computer science. To them, it doesn't matter. And if you get 21 A's, you won't get accepted into Harvard. They'll say, "Oh, your mind is all over the place. We can't have people like that." So it's changing. Yeah, more isn't better. And now slightly people now know that okay, there are degrees. There are other degrees which you can do in music and art. If you do an art degree, back home if you do an art degree, you ask as someone who is from the older generation, you say, "We've done an art degree." "Oh, so you paint apples? Oh, you paint oranges? How will you pay the rent?"
Billboards.
Yeah, billboards. They don't know that art direction is something. Yeah, you work. There is graphic design. There is art direction. There is textile design. There is so much stuff that can be done, and it's the responsibility of the people who are doing it right now. For example, there are textile engineers and textile designers who earn in the millions, but they think that if they tell people that we are doing well, somehow the market will become saturated or diluted, and that's not right. That's not right. Yeah.
When you speak of wealth and privilege, is that a part of Pakistan that you're born into? Is it very much two separate countries that don't overlap?
There are, in every country there's going to be something like that. It's a capitalist society. It happens to every degree, some degree everywhere, and in Pakistan it's very, very, very pronounced. But we do have some royal blue blood, thing going on back there, but not as pronounced as here. There are political dynasties back home, but they aren't, they haven't been doing it for centuries. And on the base of your skill, on the base of your hard work, you can actually jump classes, which is not just the capitalist stream. It's actually happening. It happens back home. It can be done, but it's not a polar society. Like the French Revolution happened because it was very, very polar. There are so many different segments. There is so many different classes of people there now that it's very difficult to say okay, there are two different countries. Yes, you can say they're different because there are people living in the rural areas and there are people living in the cities. But even in the cities, there are like 10 different classes of people. But how we think it as that they have, the one thing they have in common is that they've listened to folk music at some point in their life and they know their tunes, and it's that one tune which will get their shoulders and feet moving. So they listen maybe some jazz, and maybe we say, yeah man, that's amazing, that's incredible jazz, and jazz fusion with local and as soon as one out of tune lady or man gets on the stage with nothing but two instrument players and belts out a folk track in 3 different keys, it's over. It's gone. There'll be an explosion of happiness. Oh, everyone's dancing and they love it and they know the entire thing. So that's something that we have. It's something right there, and it comes out in every single concert we go to. And like Amir said, it's a worldly thing as well, because these folk instruments, they over time they've genetically sort of, these beats and these things, these basic
Weddings.
instruments, we have them, yeah.
Weddings.
In every single wedding, in everywhere in the world. And these war drums, these war dances, or these flute instruments, they've been with us for thousands of years. And they were there when the first humans came along, and when they spread, they took it with them. Yeah.
A few weeks ago, we had Martin Hayes and Dennis Cahill on the show, and you've heard of them? No. But Martin Hayes, incredible fiddle player, but the same instruments that were created in Europe were created over on your subcontinent, but they were played completely differently, and the sounds with the exact same instruments were completely different. So what I'm really curious about is when you speak about having these folk tunes, it's almost like a DJ knowing the mood and what's going to trigger the mood and what's going to maximize the mood. So what's the difference for you between playing in Pakistan and playing outside of Pakistan, where we don't have any of the knowledge or history of the folk repertoire you have?
That's the beauty of not having any lyrics and not having any vocals. The beats are fairly easy to understand, and I'm not saying this purely because I'm Pashtun, but somehow people just want to learn our dance and they want to learn our music, because congressional dancing is something that's been happening for quite a while, and it's again the same sort of, it's the same thing. Since there were humans, there has been congressional dancing, and we can't actually tell from our history that if the beats were made for the dance, or the dance was first made and then the beats were made. So, and it's just something that the time signature is just something that works for us everywhere. And be it in Pakistan, and you can, believe me, you can go from one province to another province and you can feel that you're in a different world. In Pakistan as well. Sometimes people, Amir used to study in a city outside of our home province, and they would say, "Can you wear jeans?
Back home? Do you have internet back home?"
Do you have internet back home? Yeah. So it's people in your own country. So we don't have to go very far to feel like that. But the reaction is the same over in, be it in another city or be it abroad. So far, it has been the same. So hopefully it will be in Trinity College as well.
So, as you explained earlier, that it's easier to love than it is to hate.
Yeah.
Is that something you feel is rife throughout your entire nation? Is that quite a common held belief? And in a way, that's what helps. Oh, okay.
No. To propagate a lot of fear, you need tens of billions of dollars and pounds and euros and whatever worth of money, and a whole bunch of effort and a whole bunch of brainwashing. And if this much effort was put into the arts, or even a quarter of it, we would have been an easier and happier nation. Much like a lot of nations who have done this. There are nations who don't even have armies, and they are some of the happiest and relaxed people in the world. So, as human beings, I do feel that genetically and intrinsically we are more prone to, forgive. But when you have so much effort being put into propagating hate, it's a bit of an uphill battle. Yeah, but there's hope when you play music for them, and then they start wiggling and they start dancing a bit. We've even seen videos of religious people, and they are having a ball. They give it the name of religious music, but there's no two ways about it. They are absolutely loving the music or the religious tune that's being played. And back home, I mean, we see these videos leak out, full traditional garb, full traditional clothing, and you would take him for someone who's a very, very rigid and strict person, and he'll be belting out a dance that you'll be amazed, and you're like, I can't dance like that. Man, this guy can dance. And you see these videos more and more. So you realize that this is the natural state, and what's being done is not natural.
I would agree to that pretty much. That things are, but again, it's the perception, individualism, how you take it. Things would be right now, even if you look at this one thing, it would be the same object, but the way you look at it would be totally different than mine. If we had to put it in any sort of, express it in any sort of medium, let it be a painting, let it be a lyric word, the poem or anything, it would be totally different. But bringing all these, and different culture, different society as we have back home, there would be something, there are certain common elements amongst them all. All these things, such as I said, the wedding ceremonies, you will have music there. So what music is being played there? You see that spectrum. It will start from, like, if it's the more of a urban setup, it would be more of like the folk, the grassroots, and then it'll go to, if you go to the high upper class and the metropolitan places, the weddings there, the well offs, it would be more of the worldly music, as they would see, because they have more exposure, people living abroad, we have family living abroad, so you have that thing there, so it's not something very out of the box for them.
Everyone likes folk music.
Everybody does. So you kind of have to connect those dots, that spectrum, and you bring these things to it. That's what it's called, fusion music.
Yeah.
So it kind of applies to everyone. So everyone can relate to it, so nobody can say bad about it as well. So because they've been listening to it, they've grown up listening to it, so it doesn't feel odd to it. And then the result you can at least explain to them, like whoever might have an eyebrow raised for this purpose, you can tell them, see, this is how it was monotonous, we kind of gave it a different flavor, and now this was your music, that it was our regional music, and now see, everyone is listening to it, it's so popular, and people are kind of seeing that, appreciating the other side of that was present, and everybody knows who wants to be presented. Like something bad happened, it would be because of one person, but if you're blaming the entire sect or clan for it, that's a bad thing. So one way or the other, it's like there also is like, yeah, that's true, because now there's a other side of us being shown.
In the past,
these
I
four
think,
guys,
in the past, I think in the past 15 to 20 years, there was a seed that was planted about 20 years ago. This neo-ethnic movement has started back home in Pakistan. We first came across a sort of music when a really impressive album came out quite a while ago, and I used to listen to it when I was a teenager, and then we sort of realized that some of these pop bands, which were the early pop bands in Pakistan, they were utilizing these same things that we do now. And it's just taking, those folk meters, those folk time signatures, and using them for their pop songs. But it was like a subconscious thing. Now back home, they are actively orchestral covers of all these folk tunes, and people absolutely love them. They love them. Each video will have 5, 10 million, 20 million views, and it's just it gives you hope. It gives you hope, and like we said, it's the folk music that connects everyone, and they absolutely love it, and that's why we chose to stick with it.
So Abda Parveen seemed to have trouble at different stages in her career because she was a woman. Is that true, or is that still the case?
Well, I think Abda is one of those few performers in the world who transcends gender. And there was a very famous interview of her as well, where she said, what is this? I'm neither male nor woman. I'm just a vessel for the Sufi. And Abda ji, at some point, every female back home has these issues. But I think in the way she is, and in the way the persona, the aura that she has, and the way she talks, and what she sings about, she's been able to transcend all these things. And she has, you listen, you hear about people saying, oh, that pop star is really sexy, and it's not about the music that they're listening to, it's about their image. Abda ji is a completely different animal. She is, there's no makeup, there's no nothing, it's only about the music and her style of music, and her fans are genuinely her fans and of her music. And most people that we've seen, they are some really good human beings who listen to Abda Parveen and her music. But maybe she had some issues, but she's been performing since she was like 11, and she's been the same since then. So I don't think there have been some severe issues, unlike other female performers back home.
So is it hard to be a woman in Pakistan, harder than to be a man, do you think? Or
Well, I'll tell you something. It's just the Scandinavian countries who's doing well on that front. The leaders of the world are not doing that well on women equality either. The trickle down of that is that it becomes much, much worse in third world countries. And if you, in any form, you go back home, even if a woman can do a job better than a man, because it's not a hunting gathering society anymore. There's no hunting, there's no gathering anymore. It's not like a man is, has to be strong enough to pull a buffalo after they've killed it. It's about the mind now, and physical strength just doesn't matter. So, but that just doesn't seem to, seem to relate back home. And certainly, it's fantastically difficult for females to be in bands and be musicians. We've tried to recruit someone to be in our group, and you can see it's very obvious. It's for all four member band, because once a female goes on stage, it's again that perception. And we have pop stars back home who have degrees from universities, but they just can't seem to shake that perception of being immoral, and that's what fathers and brothers in the family, they are very afraid of. And the thing is that it's just a hyper patriarchal society, and how much can men do in that? Even if we're not patriarchal, when you're not, if you try to be equal about it, it's like you're the only one.
It reminds me of I think one of the most famous prayers we have in the West is sometimes called the Alcoholics Prayer. Mm-hmm. And it's, I don't know if you know it, Lord, grant me the wisdom to accept the things I can change. The serenity prayer.
Serenity prayer, yeah.
And it strikes me that the serenity, you almost have a serenity philosophy towards daily life.
Well, you have to have some sort of philosophy because if you don't, it's going to be, with all the hate around, it's going to be very difficult. But we're trying to change that one concert at a time. And we are very prolific in performing. Not as prolific as Western bands, but we are doing a lot better than a lot of people. And we're extremely grateful about that. And we know that there are people who can run circles around us as musicians back home. They're not here talking to you because they can't speak English. And it's the way of the world that if the white people think that this is good music or this is good art or good philosophy, then everyone says, oh, it is. But it's our job to be here and tell you and tell everyone who's listening that there are 1,001 instruments in Pakistan right now. Some of them are dying, some of them are already extinct. The ones we are playing, they were dead about 10-15 years ago. They were dead. And now they've been being brought back into the mainstream, and there are other fabulous young, youthful human beings back home in different provinces who are working like anything. Yeah, and I have one sitting to the left of me. Farhan has chosen to be a cultural preservationist now and work entirely and solely on music. He has an MBA, and he thought that this is something which he needs to actively do, so much so that he's inspired me even that. And my mother, she is by the way an incredible woman, and her and my wife, we've all come together to make something from it as well. We made like a little company. We're trying to make some music, trying to do something for the arts. So it's inspiring people like Farhan who, picked up the instruments which were considered to be immoral instruments, played by people who are not serious about life and they are unempathetic or unsympathetic about people. Farhan has a daughter, and when a person has a daughter, he is one of the most sympathetic human beings in the world. That's what I feel, and that's what I've seen him do. Mm-hmm. He had this sympathy since the beginning, and when he picked it up, it sort of inspired us to, go along with it.
So why does a doctor pick up such immoral instruments?
Why does the doctor pick up such immoral instruments? Because the guy with the MBA, the guy who's a brilliant human being and is a loving father and husband, picked it up, and is serious about life and wants to make something and wants to do something for musicians back home. That sentiment is global. That sentiment is something which no one can deny. And be it a doctor or an engineer or whatever. And you meet, I had a teacher, I'm an architect by profession, and I had a teacher, he wanted to be a painter but became an architect instead. And you know who that reminded me of? It reminded me of Hitler. Because he was in art school. He used to be in art school and then he never got accepted into the University of Austria. And who knows if that was the turning point for him to become who he became. If he had, and if you see his paintings, they're not bad. Aside of the fact that he's a huge, but you meet these people who said that I just wanted to become so and so, this and this, but I couldn't because life happened. And you feel that now it's our responsibility to maybe live their dream, and they see us living it through them with their children, 2 children in their arms, standing in the aisles, and but it's not a complete rejection of them as well, because we are doing the same things that they are. We have day jobs. We are the same people as they are. So we have day jobs. We do the same things that they do, and now we have more and more underground bands. We always had underground bands, always, but now it's become slightly easier to get recognized, to come to the forefront, and even for folk musicians, it's gotten better. We've been working with them. We've been trying to just record them and put their stuff, online somewhere. So maybe someone listens to them and says that, okay, this is incredible. I need to have them. And it's happened quite a few times. So just by...
I'll get all the links from you and I'll share them out. I'm conscious of the fact that you guys have to go to Ballymun, I think, to the Access Art Centre.
Yes, we do.
So just to round up, thank you. Thank you so much for your time and for your positivity and for being here. I look really forward to seeing you live.
It was a pleasure. It was a genuine
Thank you for having
pleasure.
us. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
That was the excellent and enlightening Khumariyaan from Pakistan. Learnt so much from those guys, and I'm really grateful for their time. And really grateful to all the folks in the US Embassy who organised their trip to Ireland. And it all started off when someone from the embassy was working in Pakistan, organised a gig for them then brought them to South by Southwest, and now brought them to Ireland. And some amazing music coming out of Pakistan. As we don't play music on this show, I can't really play any of their music, but Google them. They are incredible. I love them. Khumariyaan. If you're listening to this on RT Radio and you don't grab the spelling, just Google BornOptimistic and you'll see the spelling right there. Amazing guys, and really grateful for the time they've given us, and learned a lot from them. And we've all got a lot to learn from each other all the time. And I love the way musicians are by definition entrepreneurial in terms of how they work to put what they do out into the world and all the struggles they go through. I really, really enjoyed that chat. But I do need you to review the show on the iTunes store, on the Stitcher store. Write a review, say how much you love the show. Well, I assume you love the show if you've gotten to this part of it. Say how much you love it, and then send us a message at Twitter at BornOptimistic or at Donald Scannell, or Facebook BornOptimistic Show, or you can email me donald@bornoptimistic.com. Drop us a line, let us know you put the review there, so I'll look on the store, because my Apple store is set by default to Ireland, so you have to log in and out and change store to see the different reviews. So if you're listening in Holland, and I know there's a sizable contingent of you in Holland amongst other countries, if you're listening in Holland, I'm never on the Apple Holland store, so let me know and I'll check out the review, and I really, really would appreciate that. So on next week's show, we've got the author Claire Hennessy talking about her book, Like Other Girls, amongst other things. Really curious to spend time with Claire, and I'm really looking forward to recording that interview. And also, I want to say thank you to Roddy at Art19. I want to thank everyone at Snow Furnace, everyone at Born Optimistic, everyone at Team Zodo Pa B. Very excited about the forthcoming Born Optimistic David Gray shows. The 3 dates at Kilkenny, Cork and Wexford are all pretty much sold out. but there might be some Dublin news coming very, very soon, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much to everyone, RT, Martina, Eric, thank you so much for all your help and support. And until next Monday, bye.